In the year 2743, when star systems had become as familiar as city blocks and diplomacy was conducted through quantum-linked holograms across galaxies, Commander Riven Tor stood at the edge of history, though he didn't know it yet. He was a man built more for war than charm, with sharp cheekbones carved by years in zero gravity and eyes that had seen too many battles to blink easily. His uniform, a deep navy with silver trim, was always perfectly pressed, not because he cared about appearances, but because discipline was his religion. As commander of Earth's third galactic fleet, Riven was known for precision, cold logic, and an almost robotic ability to remain unshaken under fire. But none of that mattered the moment he walked into the Grand Concord Summit on Nova Zenith Station, where human and alien delegates gathered to discuss peace after decades of cold tension. The chamber was a marvel of interstellar architecture. Curved walls made of living crystal that pulsed gently with ambient light, floors embedded with shifting constellations that mapped real-time galactic movements, and gravity fields calibrated so each species could stand comfortably regardless of their planet's pull. Delegates from 17 civilizations mingled beneath a dome open to the stars, sipping synthesized nectars and exchanging encrypted data chips like old friends trading gossip. And then there she was. General Vera Solen of the Zenith Dominion stood near the central dais, tall and radiant like moonlight given form. Her skin was pale as fresh snow, glowing faintly with bioluminescent veins that traced delicate patterns along her arms and neck. Her hair, long and white as comet tails, flowed behind her like liquid silk, untouched by gravity thanks to a subtle anti-mass field woven into her ceremonial armor. That armor, sleek, silver-white, shaped like flowing water frozen mid-motion, hugged her frame without hiding her strength. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had commanded armadas capable of cracking planets. Her people, humanoid but distinctly alien, communicated partly through microlight pulses in their irises, which now shimmered like distant stars. Riven had studied her dossier before the summit. Known for ending the Krell War in 3 days by outmaneuvering an entire fleet with nothing but stealth drones and psychological warfare, General Solen was not someone you approached lightly. She had never smiled in any official recording, never cracked a joke, never shown anything but icy focus. And yet, when Riven accidentally bumped into her while reaching for a glass of water, his elbow knocking over a tray of alien pastries shaped like spiraling galaxies, something strange happened. He stammered, face burning. Sorry. Human reflexes. We're still working on fine motor skills. She turned slowly, those luminous eyes locking onto his. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, to his horror, he blurted, "You're really something. I mean, not that I'm staring or anything. It's just your hair. It's like frozen starlight, which is cool. Not that you're cold. You seem very warm. Probably. I don't know. I should stop talking." He wanted to vanish into the floor. But instead of scowling or reporting him for diplomatic misconduct, Vera tilted her head slightly. A ripple of soft blue light flickered in her pupils. Zenith body language, he later learned, meaning mild amusement. "Frozen starlight," she repeated, voice low and melodic, like wind through crystalline trees. "That is unexpectedly poetic for a military commander." And then she smiled. Not a polite curve of the lips, a real smile, one that lit up her entire face, softened her sharp features, and made Riven feel like his heart had been hit by a tractor beam. He managed a weak nod before fleeing toward the nearest ventilation shaft, seriously considering crawling inside. From that moment, things got complicated, because every time Riven looked up during the summit sessions, she was watching him. Not glaring, not analyzing, just looking, with those ancient, knowing eyes, as if trying to solve a puzzle only she could see. Once, during a tense debate about resource sharing in the Helix Belt, he caught her studying him while the human ambassador ranted about mineral rights. Her fingers tapped once against her jaw, an idle gesture, perhaps, but her gaze never wavered. Another time, when he adjusted his collar during a speech, she mirrored the motion, touching her own neck as if feeling the same discomfort. It was unnerving, flattering, terrifying. His crew noticed. "Sir," whispered Lieutenant Mara after day 2. "Either she wants to court you, assassinate you, or both. I've read Zenith cultural files. They don't stare unless they're choosing a life partner or declaring blood feud." "Don't be ridiculous," Riven muttered, adjusting his sleeve for the 10th time that hour. "She barely knows me." "But she sees you," Mara said simply. "And Zenith don't waste sight on the irrelevant." He tried to ignore it, focused on negotiations. argued passionately against the proposed joint mining initiative, which would have allowed corporate conglomerates from both Earth and Zenith space to strip entire moons bare in 5 years. He cited environmental collapse, ethical violations, historical parallels to colonial exploitation. Most delegates nodded politely. A few rolled their eyes. But Vera listened, really listened, and when she finally spoke, her words echoed his concerns with such precision it felt like she'd read his mind. "The galaxy does not exist to be consumed," she said, rising from her seat. "We are custodians, not conquerors. To drain worlds for profit is to repeat the mistakes of extinct civilizations. If we continue down this path, no treaty will save us from our own greed." Applause rippled through the chamber. Riven couldn't help but stare back at her now, and this time, when their eyes met, neither looked away. That night, during a quiet reception under the nebula-lit balconies of the station, she found him alone, gazing at the swirling colors beyond the force field. "You speak with fire," she said, appearing beside him like a whisper given shape. "But your eyes carry sorrow." Riven exhaled. "I've seen what happens when power goes unchecked. Wars start over resources that could have been shared. Planets burn for politics. People die for decisions made in rooms just like this one. And yet you still fight for peace. Someone has to." She stepped closer. The air around her hummed faintly, a side effect of her bioenergy field. "On Zanara, we believe souls recognize each other across lifetimes. That certain connections are inevitable." He laughed nervously. "Is that your way of saying I'm stuck with you?" "No," she said softly. "It's my way of saying I've been waiting for someone like you, without knowing it." His breath caught. They talked for hours about war, about loss, about the weight of command. She told him of her homeworld, where cities grew like forests from the ground up, where children learned empathy before arithmetic. He told her of Earth's oceans, of thunderstorms and coffee and dogs that wagged their tails for no reason at all. She laughed at that, a bright, unexpected sound like chimes in a breeze. And somewhere between stories of battlefield escapes and childhood memories of climbing trees, something shifted. Not fireworks, not lightning, something deeper, like two tectonic plates settling into alignment after millennia apart. But the universe wasn't done testing them. 3 days later, encrypted data began leaking from secure channels. Files buried so deep, even AI sensors hadn't found them. Audio logs, financial trails, surveillance footage, all pointing to a secret alliance between high-ranking officials in Earth's United Stellar Council and the Zenith High Command. A shadow pact, a plan to fabricate a false flag attack on a neutral colony, blame it on rogue factions, and use the chaos to justify total control over the galaxy's core systems. Billions would suffer. Trillions in credits would flow into private hands. Wars would rage for decades, all orchestrated from behind velvet curtains. Riven found the first file by accident, flagged by an old friend in intelligence who died mysteriously hours later. When he confronted the evidence, his superiors denied everything, smiled, offered him a promotion, told him to forget what he'd seen. Vera discovered the truth through her own channels. Her second-in-command, a trusted advisor, tried to silence her with poison. She survived, barely, her body rejecting the toxin due to her species-enhanced biology. But the betrayal cut deeper than any blade. They met again, this time in a hidden docking bay beneath the station, shadows cloaking their faces. "They want to turn peace into profit," Riven said, voice raw, "and they'll kill anyone who stands in their way." Vera's eyes glowed faint red grief, fury, resolve. "My people trust their leaders. Your people trust theirs. But both are being lied to, manipulated." "We go public," Riven insisted. "Release everything. Names, dates, recordings. And be labeled traitors?" she asked. "Discredited? Hunted? Then we run," he said. "Disappear. Fight from the shadows. Expose them piece by piece." She studied him, the lines of exhaustion around his eyes, the stubborn set of his jaw. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his hand. A simple gesture. But for Zenith, touch was intimacy, trust, covenant. "If we do this," she whispered, "there is no return. Our ranks, our homes, our identities, all gone." He looked at her, not as a general, not as an alien, but as the woman who had smiled at his terrible joke and stayed to hear the rest of his story. "Then let's make a new one," he said. They vanished the next day. Official reports claimed Commander Riventor had been abducted by extremist elements. General Vera Solen was declared missing in action during a routine patrol. Memorials were held, flags lowered, promotions handed out. But in the dark spaces between stars, they lived. Using stolen encryption keys, black market contacts, and a battered scout ship called the Wayfarer, they became ghosts in the machine. They hacked planetary networks, intercepted supply routes, uncovered offshore accounts hidden in dead zones of space. One by one, they exposed the architects of the conspiracy. Human admirals taking bribes from asteroid mining cartels, Zenith ministers auctioning off sacred sites to corporate bidders, diplomats selling refugee routes to slavers. Each revelation sparked riots, protests, resignations. They weren't heroes, not officially. To many, they were criminals, terrorists, fugitives. But to the oppressed colonies, the displaced families, the forgotten worlds crushed under the weight of greed, they became legends. They called themselves the Ember Pair because they carried the last spark of honesty in a dying fire. And through it all, their bond grew stronger. There were moments of levity even in exile, like the time Riven tried to cook Earth-style pancakes in Zero-G and ended up with batter floating in glowing orbs that Vera playfully zapped with a tiny plasma pulse. Or when she attempted to learn sarcasm and delivered a deadpan insult so perfect it took him 10 seconds to realize she was joking. "Your tactical planning," she said after a narrow escape, "is only slightly less reckless than a blindfolded lemur on a speeder bike." They argued, too, about strategy, about risk, once, fiercely, about whether mercy should be shown to a captured operative who had ordered the bombing of a school. Riven wanted trial. Vera wanted justice, swift and final. "He's just following orders," Riven said. "So were the ones who burned my sister's village," she replied, voice icy. "And they all wore clean uniforms. They didn't speak for 2 days. Then, quietly, she brought him a cup of Zenith herbal brew, bitter, steaming, served in a chipped mug he'd kept since Earth. No words, just presence. He understood. Love, they learned, wasn't just warmth and laughter. It was standing together in the storm. It was choosing each other, even when the right path was unclear. As their campaign intensified, the powers that be struck back. Mercenaries hunted them. False broadcasts painted them as madmen. Bounty hunters swarmed the outer rim, lured by promises of citizenship, wealth, power. Once, they were cornered on the ice moon of Drellis 9. Cut off, low on fuel, surrounded by 6 armed skiffs. Riven manned the guns. Vera piloted, weaving through glacial spires with impossible grace. "You ever think," he shouted over the roar of engines, "that maybe we should have just retired to a beach somewhere? Sunday sand. No conspiracies." She fired a pulse charge that sent one skiff spinning into a crevasse. "Beaches are overrated. Too exposed." Fair point. They escaped, barely, using a trick Riven had learned from an old smuggler, overloading the comms array to create a false warp signature. The hunters chased a ghost while the Wayfarer slipped into a dormant asteroid field, hiding among rocks older than civilization. Later, as they patched the hull with emergency sealant, Riven leaned against the bulkhead, exhausted. "You know," he said, "if we survive this, what then?" Vera paused, her bioluminescent markings pulsing gently in the dim light. "I have always wondered what it would be like to walk through a forest, not for reconnaissance, not for survival, just to feel leaves brush my skin, to hear wind without scanning for threats." He smiled. "I know a place, back on Earth. Redwoods, trees so tall they disappear into clouds. We could go there, when it's over." She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time he saw not the warrior, not the general, but the woman beneath. Tired, hopeful, alive. "Yes," she said softly. "We could." But the galaxy wasn't ready for peace. Deep in the archives of a derelict research station orbiting a dead star, they found the final piece, the master ledger. A complete record of every bribe, every assassination order, every lie told in the name of stability. Names, dates, locations, even plans for a weapon, Project Eclipse, a device capable of destabilizing suns, making entire systems uninhabitable. Designed to eliminate uncooperative planets. Funded jointly by Earth's Defense Directorate and the Zenith Shadow Cabinet. This was no longer about exposure. This was about prevention. They couldn't just reveal the truth. They had to destroy it. The plan was insane, dangerous, almost certainly suicidal. They would infiltrate the central nexus, the heavily fortified data vault beneath Earth's capital city, where all interstellar records were stored and protected by quantum firewalls, drone sentinels, and gravity traps. They would upload a virus that wouldn't just leak the files, but erase the corrupted core entirely, triggering a system-wide reset that would expose every hidden transaction, every forged document, every encrypted order. But the Nexus was designed to be impenetrable, so they wouldn't go in as soldiers. They'd go in as ghosts, using stolen credentials, disguised tech from a black market inventor on Orion's belt, and a distraction created by allied rebels on 3 different planets. They slipped through the cracks. Riven posed as a maintenance engineer. Vera, her features subtly altered, played a data auditor from the outer colonies. The halls of the Nexus were silent, lit by soft blue veins in the walls. Every step echoed. Security drones patrolled in precise patterns. Biometric scanners watched for anomalies. They moved like shadows. But halfway to the core chamber, alarms blared. They'd been made. Footsteps pounded. Energy rifles charged. Red lights flooded the corridors. Riven grabbed Vera's hand. No turning back. They ran. Through labyrinthine tunnels. Across anti-grav bridges. Into server chambers humming with raw data. Drones opened fire. Bolts of energy scorched the walls. Riven threw a flash grenade. Vera used her biopulse to short-circuit a security node. They reached the core chamber. A vast spherical room filled with swirling streams of light. The beating heart of the galaxy's information network. Riven slammed the access panel. Uploading the purge sequence. It's fighting the code. Vera shouted, fingers flying over the interface. Firewall adaptation. Too fast. We need more time. Riven turned, raised his rifle, and fired at the main door controls, sealing them in. Then we give it. Gunfire erupted as troops breached the secondary entrance. Shields flared. Sparks rained down. Vera's hands trembled. Almost there. A bolt grazed Riven's shoulder. He fell to one knee. She looked at him. Blood on his temple, breath ragged, and something inside her snapped. With a cry that wasn't human, wasn't Zenith, but purely her, she slammed her palm onto the console and unleashed a surge of raw bioenergy. Something forbidden, dangerous, capable of burning out her nervous system. The system screamed. Light exploded. And then silence. The streams of data froze. Then reversed. Then shattered into fragments of truth, broadcasting outward on every frequency, every channel, every screen in the known systems. Names, crimes, confessions, all revealed. The purge was complete. Outside, on thousands of worlds, screens lit up with the same message. The lie is over. Wake up. And they did. Revolutions began not with bombs, but with outrage. Citizens stormed government buildings. Soldiers refused orders. Leaders fled or were dragged from hiding. But in the core chamber, darkness fell. Riven crawled to Vera's side. She was unconscious. Her glow dimmed. Her breathing shallow. No, he whispered, cradling her. No, 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 you can't leave me now. Not after all this. We were supposed to see the redwoods. Remember. Her fingers twitched. Then, slowly, her eyes opened. Still here, she murmured. He laughed. A broken, joyful sound. You idiot. You magnificent, reckless, beautiful idiot. She managed a weak smile. Worth it. To see the truth. Fly free. Sirens wailed in the distance. Reinforcements coming. He picked her up, ignoring the pain, the blood, the weight of everything they'd lost and gained. We're not done, he said. Not even close. And as the first rays of dawn broke over Earth's skyline, streaming through the shattered dome above, they disappeared into the ruins of the old world. 2 fugitives, 2 lovers, 2 sparks in the dark, together, and the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, began to breathe again. The galaxy did not change overnight. Truth, once unleashed, does not instantly heal centuries of corruption, but it spreads, like light through cracks in a sealed tomb, slow but unstoppable. Riven and Vera vanished again, this time not from fear, but from necessity. They had ignited the fire, but now others had to carry the torch. Rebels rose on distant moons. Whistleblowers stepped forward. Entire planetary governments dissolved under public pressure. The corrupt leaders, those who hadn't fled into deep space or been captured, were put on trial in open courts broadcast across star systems. For the first time, justice wasn't buried beneath classified files or silenced by military decree. It was loud. It was raw. It was alive. But with power vacuums come chaos. And chaos breeds new predators. In the months that followed, Warlords emerged, former generals, black market kings, rogue AI cults, all claiming to be the true protectors of order. Some wanted to rebuild the old system. Others sought to tear everything down and start over in their own image. Refugees poured across borders. Supply lines collapsed. Whole colonies teetered on starvation. And still Riven and Vera watched, waited, healed. They found shelter on a forgotten world called Alaris 7, a planet untouched by war, where twin suns painted the skies in gold and violet, and forests grew in spirals, their trunks wide as city blocks. There, hidden in a valley surrounded by singing winds and bioluminescent moss, they lived in a small stone cabin built from ancient ruins. No weapons, no comms, no disguises. For 6 weeks they simply were. They walked barefoot through fields of silver grass. Riven taught Vera how to skip stones across a mercury-like lake. She taught him the zenith art of silent meditation, where you sit so still that even the stars seem to pause. They cooked together, laughed more than they had in years, and at night, wrapped in thermal blankets beneath a sky thick with galaxies, they whispered dreams they never thought they'd dare to speak. "I want to see oceans," Vera said one evening, her head resting on his shoulder. "Real ones, not simulations, not data feeds, to feel waves pull at my feet, to taste salt on my lips." "You will," Riven promised, "and I'll teach you how to swim, even if you panic and try to phase shift out of the water like last time." She elbowed him gently. "That was a reflex. Water is unnatural. And yet you love me," he teased. "Also unnatural." She turned to him then, her pale eyes glowing faintly in the twilight. "No," she said softly. "Loving you feels more natural than breathing." He kissed her, slowly, deeply, the kind of kiss that carries all the words they never needed to say. But peace, no matter how sweet, never lasts long when the universe is breaking. The message came on an old frequency, buried in a children's nursery rhyme broadcast from the Orion Rim. A simple pattern, a code only they would recognize. Rising storm, nexus fallen. Need the ember pair. It was Mara, his former lieutenant, now leading a coalition of free system militias. The central reforms were crumbling. The very people who had cheered the fall of the old regime were now fracturing into factions, each accusing the other of betrayal. Without strong leadership, the galaxy risked descending into endless civil war. And worse, rumors spoke of Project Eclipse remnants. Not destroyed, hidden. A single prototype device capable of triggering solar flares still existed. In the wrong hands, it could wipe out entire civilizations with the push of a button. The message ended with 3 words. "We need you." Riven stared at the cracked screen of the salvaged receiver, his heart heavy. Vera stood behind him, arms wrapped around herself. "We can't stay," she said quietly. "Not while others suffer." He turned to her. "I don't want to lose you. Not after everything." "You won't," she said, stepping forward, placing her hand over his heart. "Because I'm not going anywhere. But they need us. Not as fugitives. Not as symbols. As leaders." He exhaled, nodded. They left Alaris 7 at dawn. Back in the stars, they were no longer just rebels. They became architects, using encrypted networks, abandoned military bases, and the loyalty of those who had followed their cause. Riven and Vera emerged, not as commanders of armies, but as founders of something new. The Galactic Accord, a decentralized council of representatives from every major species, colony, and free world. No single government, no central authority, just cooperation, transparency, shared responsibility. Riven handled strategy, diplomacy, defense. His reputation as a tactician and truth-seeker gave him credibility among human systems. Vera, with her calm wisdom and deep understanding of interstellar law, became the voice of unity among alien civilizations. Her presence alone, once feared as the icy General Solen, now inspired hope. She spoke not of dominance, but balance. Not of revenge, but restoration. And slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to mend. They dismantled Project Eclipse for good, tracking the prototype to a derelict warship drifting near a dying star. With a team of elite operatives, they boarded the vessel, fought through automated defenses, and disabled the weapon before it could be activated by a fanatical sect calling themselves the Pure Order. The final detonation sequence had already begun. Countdown at 47 seconds, when Vera, using her bioenergy to override the core circuits, shut it down with 3 seconds to spare. Riven pulled her back just as the reactor imploded. the ship folding in on itself like crushed metal. Later, floating in escape pods as the debris burned around them, he looked at her, smudged with ash, hair tangled, uniform torn, and laughed. "You've got a real thing for cutting things close, don't you?" She smirked. "I learned from the best. Their love, forged in fire and tempered by sacrifice, only grew stronger. It wasn't perfect. They argued. They worried. They carried scars, both visible and hidden. Riven still woke some nights gasping from nightmares of lost soldiers. Vera sometimes fell silent for hours, haunted by the memory of her sister, killed in a conflict orchestrated by her own people's greed. But they faced it together. They built a home, not on Earth, not on Zanara, but on a newly terraformed world called Orion, midway between human and alien space. A neutral ground. A fresh start. There, they planted trees, earth oaks beside zenith skyvines that bloomed at dawn. They adopted 2 children, orphans from a war-torn moon. One human girl with wild curls and fearless eyes. One zenith boy with silver markings and a laugh like wind chimes. They raised them without uniforms, without secrets. And when the children asked about the stories, the fugitive commander, the alien general, the couple who brought down empires, Riven and Vera would smile, look at each other and say, "We didn't save the galaxy. Then, together, we just reminded it how to save itself." Years passed. The Galactic Accord held. New generations grew up knowing peace not as a dream, but as a choice they had to make every day. On the anniversary of the Nexus Purge, now celebrated as Day of Light, people across the stars lit lanterns. Some made of paper, some of plasma, some grown from living crystal, and released them into the sky. From their hilltop home on Orion, Riven and Vera watched the glow rise, blending with the stars. She leaned into him, her hand in his. "It was worth it," she whispered. He kissed her temple. Every second. Below, their children ran through the fields, laughing, chasing the floating lights. And above, the galaxy. Still vast, still fragile, still beautiful. Turned on, guided by the quiet courage of 2 souls who had chosen love over fear, truth over power, and each other. Always, above all. And so, under a sky painted with the soft hues of twin sunsets, Riven and Vera stood hand in hand, watching the last of the lanterns rise like fireflies woven into the stars. The air was warm, carrying the scent of blooming night flowers and distant rain. On the hill below, their children played, voices ringing with joy. No fear of war, no shadow of betrayal, only the pure, unburdened laughter of youth raised in peace. The galaxy had not become perfect. Such a thing was impossible. There were still disputes, still pain, still moments when old hatreds flickered like dying embers. But now there were also systems of justice that listened, councils that answered to the people, children who learned about empathy before they learned about weapons. The Galactic Accord thrived not as a government but as a promise, a vow written not in stone or code, but in the hearts of billions who remembered what had been lost and what had been reclaimed. Riven and Vera never sought titles in this new world. No thrones, no statues. When history spoke their names, it did so quietly, like a secret passed from one generation to the next. The Ember pair, the ones who loved across species, defied empires, and chose each other even when the universe tried to tear them apart. One evening, as they sat on the wooden porch of their home, wrapped in a shared blanket, Vera rested her head on Riven's shoulder. "You ever miss it?" she asked. "The power? The command?" He chuckled softly. "Sometimes. Not the responsibility, not the weight, but the thrill, the moment before a plan kicks off, like jumping into the unknown." She smiled. "I miss flying through asteroid fields at top speed, and your terrible jokes during combat." "Hey," he said, feigning offense. "My jokes kept morale up, and gave me headaches." They laughed, long and deep, the kind of laughter that only comes after surviving storms together. Later, as the first stars blinked awake, Vera reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, smooth stone, veined with silver, warmed by her touch. It was a zenith memory stone, ancient and rare, capable of holding recorded thoughts, emotions, even dreams. "I made something," she said shyly. He took it gently, placing it against his temple as she did the same. Together they activated it, and suddenly they were there back on Nova Zenith Station during the summit. The crystal walls pulsed, delegates murmured, and there they were, young, uncertain, standing awkwardly after he'd knocked over the pastries. Her voice echoed in his mind. Frozen starlight, unexpectedly poetic. Then forward through every moment that followed. Their first real conversation under the nebula-lit balcony. The escape from Drellis 9, the silence after the purge, the first sunrise on Alaris 7, the day they adopted their children, the 1,000 quiet mornings since. It ended with a new image, one she had created just for him. A vision of the future. An older Riven, hair streaked with gray, sitting beneath the redwoods of Earth, Vera beside him. Her glow dimmed with age but her eyes still bright, their hands intertwined, peace all around. I want that, she whispered aloud, tears glistening like stardust on her cheeks. All of it, every year, every season, every quiet morning. He pulled her close, heart full. Then we'll have it. And they did. Years turned to decades. Their children grew, built lives of their own, carried forward the values of truth and compassion. Riven taught at the Orion Academy, mentoring young leaders. Vera wrote books, poetry, philosophy, stories of war and love and second chances that were read across civilizations. When they walked through the markets of their town, people would smile, bow slightly, say nothing, but their eyes would say everything. One crisp morning, as golden light spilled over the mountains, they stood at the edge of a vast forest they had helped replant. A forest that now stretched for miles, alive with birdsong and rustling leaves. Vera took Riven's hand. Ready, he grinned. For what? To see how deep the roots go. And together they stepped into the trees. No fanfare, no grand farewell. Just two souls, once commanders of fleets and tides of fate, now simply home. The galaxy moved on. But somewhere, in every act of kindness, in every choice to do what's right instead of what's easy, in every love that dared to cross boundaries, their story lived on. Not as legend, but as hope. And that was the happiest ending of all.